This is Under the Cover, where we take you behind the scenes of some of the most iconic photo shoots, music videos, and fashion shows of our time. I'm Cayli Cavaco Reck, and alongside my father, legendary stylist Paul Cavaco, we'll dive into the glamorous styles and the ingenious collaborations that shaped modern fashion. We'll talk to supermodels, designers, hairdressers, makeup artists, and even a few other stylists to hear their personal stories. Because there's always a story under the cover. It has been said that Garen is the master of the mane. This is Garen. In preparation for talking to you, Garen, I went over all of the covers that you and my dad have worked on together. Not all of them. There are more covers that you two have done together than I think any two people in my dad's career.
Well, we've been around since before you were born.
Yeah, we're at 45 years
this is
of
what
working together.
So start at the beginning. When do you remember the first time you met Paul?
I remember I met him through Tom and your mother, Keisha. And it was probably back when I was at the Plaza.
It was, yeah,
and
for sure.
Probably was at an Armani show.
Oh, God.
So many things go back to the Armani shows.
I know.
My first memory of you is being in your house, and I think my mom was getting a haircut, and you had a triptych mirror, which I thought was the coolest thing because I'd only seen that in a store. And I was sitting on the floor with a Walkman listening to fashion show music as you cut her hair. And at that point, I remember we knew Tom really well because my dad used to shoot with Tom all the time.
Right.
And I remember that being that moment of sitting on the floor in your apartment, sort of the switching point where I saw much more of you and less of Tom. And it's probably because you two started working together shortly thereafter.
Right. I worked with your mom, and then I started working with your dad.
Yeah.
Because your mom would bring me on all those trips to, I guess it was Philadelphia or...
It was Philadelphia, yeah.
The very chic location of Philadelphia.
They used to go, and it was for, oh God, what was
the
it?
Mint.
The Franklin Mint. And they would fly you in a helicopter from New York.
With the model and the four of us.
Right. And I never went because one of us had to never be on a helicopter. I went on my first helicopter ride 2 years ago. I would never get in a helicopter.
Because of me?
Because of Cayli.
Look at me holding you back for so many years.
They had a deal.
Yep.
So
they couldn't fly the Concorde together. They would have to separate.
Yeah.
Let me ask you another question. So we're going back early days. You said when you were at the Plaza. For people that are listening, What was at the Plaza?
The Plaza Hotel on Fifth Avenue was a salon that Glenby built me that was called Garren at the Plaza. And your father used to make fun of the at the Plaza because he would introduce me to people as Garen at the Plaza.
As if it was his last name.
It was my last name.
I believe that there are people that think that your last name is in fact Plaza, which cracks me up. It is in fact DeFazio, but people do think it is. You're just Garen, like Prince or Madonna. Garen. Where were you born?
Niagara Falls, New York.
And how old were you when you moved?
Right across the water from where Linda was born in Toronto.
Right, because she's in Niagara Falls in Toronto. Right?
Ontario. So we were just a kiss flick away.
And how old were you when you moved to New York?
I was 19 or 20. I moved to New York in 1974. I moved with Tom. We both came together. Tom's my husband, and his last name's Priano. And then I started working with Paul, and we started doing the fashion shows with your mom and dad. Some of the craziest fashion shows. Like
some of the crazy.
Capucci was the craziest. Capucci's still my favorite fashion show.
The designer wanted Garen to just pull all the hair into tiny little chignons, which was already sort of dégagé at that time. Like we were not into the look. So your mom said to Garen, do it when while they're looking, and then before the girls go out, change it to be the hairdo you want. And only Garen, who can do a hairdo in
A split second.
changed all the hairdos. So all the girls came out with a different hairdo than the chignon, which was kind of brilliant.
And
Their hair was defying gravity at that time. I had everybody's hair flipped out and crazy and kind of it was like airborne. And I remember that one. And then the other one was at the Valentino show. We wanted to do punk, and Valentino didn't want punk. And so we figured it out. And your mother and Paul just said, well, when you get to Valentino, it'll be too late. Like they'll push him out, push the girl out. And Valentino kept going, too punk, too punk, too punk. And Giancarlo would just push the girl out. And that was another like crazy moment, but it was fun.
And this is the 80s.
Yeah, I would say
the early 80s.
Yeah,
late 70s, early
late
80s.
70s, early 80s.
And then we had the Max Mara, which your mom and Paul were just like, the clothes are so boring. So they had me wrap the heads in fabric.
Was it gold lame? Was it all gold? It was gold lame, and they had little tiny Helene Arpel
flat shoes.
They were flat. They were penny loafers, but they were
They were narrow,
really
very
narrow,
skinny penny loafers with a low vamp.
Yeah,
and they were gold lame. And then for anyone that's listening, this is from my childhood memory. This is not from photos. We're not looking at videos. This is all from our memories. And the girls had scarves in their hair that looked like buns, right?
Everyone had a different sort of head wrap.
It was
and they were all slightly different.
Flash, fanned out, not really small, pleated.
Chic.
They were cool. And we had fun. I mean, it was because you were at all the shows is because you were on your father's stomach, because he had a little carrier to carry you. You were everywhere. You saw everything.
I sure did.
Well, you did. And things maybe you didn't want to see or didn't know what you were seeing, but you did see everything and you heard everything.
I think about the idea of sort of owning a salon as probably being very similar to the moment I had in life where I was sort of around and things were happening around me. But I was not necessarily involved, but all of this action was happening. And I think about, having a salon, and especially the one that you had in Bendel's, where your room was to the side by the window,
right,
but you could hear everything that was going on. And every chic, stylish woman in New York City was in that salon in that moment in time.
The models is what really brought it all in there. And all the celebrities that had done on shoots with Paul and Steven and Penn and Avedon, I mean, they just came in and the girls would get their hair cut and colored, and that just fueled all the women. They wanted to see all the girls. And Caroline Kennedy was Christopher's client, and she would come every 3 weeks to get her hair colored. And when people saw her, they were just like, this was like the place. It was all happening.
She and I lived close to each other, and we were having a manicure together at the same time. And she said, "Oh, what are you doing now?" And we had a friend that lived around the corner, and she said, "I've got like 24 minutes. I said, "Oh, that's so exact, 24 minutes. I always think about that." She said, "I have 24 minutes before I have to leave for my hair color." And of course, I knew that she got her hair cut, her colored at Garen, not at the Plaza, but at Bendel's. And I said, "Oh, I'm going there too. I'm getting my hair cut." And I have to say, I felt really chic going to Garen with Carolyn Bessette, but my hair was being cut by Garen. It was so good. It felt so important.
Well, the thing is, since we're talking about covers at some point, one of the covers we did was in Bendel's with Linda Evangelista. And Bendel's had been around in the 60s and 70s, had closed down, and then reopened. And we would do Cayli, Cavaco, and Duca, which was our PR company, was doing the publicity for it. And before it opened, I asked if we could shoot there. And so we had Stephen Meisel shooting it. Linda Evangelista was the model. Garen was the hairdresser. Kevin O'Quan was the makeup artist. And Anna Swee and I were the stylists. We did it together, which is unusual for two people to do it together. But we did it together. And we got the keys to Bendel's. And we went at night when there was no one in the store at all. They had no one following us. They didn't have a guard. It was just us with the keys to everything. And we just opened it and took the jewelry out. We put clothes on, model from there. We had a hilarious time, but never, it's people's dream to go to.
This is my fantasy.
Yeah, it's people's fantasy and dream to go to a store by themselves with nobody there and just go through the store.
That store in general just has beautiful architecture. So you were in the atrium in the front.
Right, but that was to your dad's. He's the one that suggested that they bring me into Bendel's. And
well, they needed that. They needed the sort of the chic to bring back, because Bendel's had been very chic, and then when it came back, people didn't know what to expect. So Garen's being in the salon, having the salon there, changed kind of people's perception of what was going to be in there, which made it much chicer. And then all those women coming in and out of there, and it was right in the front where you could see them. And there was also...
It was on the second floor or the third floor?
Third floor.
Third floor. But they also had, in the atrium, they had tables and chairs right outside the salon. So you could sit there and have coffee while you were waiting. And people could see when they came into the atrium who was there. So it was very, very good for Bendel's.
And there was, from what I remember, there were leopard robes.
Yes, Anna Swee. I had an idea that Anna should design leopard robes because the carpet was leopard, was oscillate. And I thought leopard, when we started thinking about what would women look good in, whether they're size small, medium, large, tall, or short, the one common denominator was it was like leopard works on everybody, no matter what your skin color is. And anything else just would look cheap. And so Anna found the perfect fabric, and the store designed these robes for us. I mean, Anna designed the robes, and we had them available in the salon, and then we would sell them. We also had, the towels that matched with my signature on them, my logo on them, Garen, New York. And
not to be confused with At the Plaza.
Right. And I also was able to do a product line back then.
What I remember about that salon was at one stage, as it got bigger and you took over the other side of the atrium, then the reception was in the middle and your products were behind the counter. And I think that was the first time I realized that someone I knew could make products. And here we are, many moons later, with a beauty store.
With selling your products, your new products.
Will you tell us, R&Co, your brand that you have now,
right, is
so much about, I think, getting your hair to look the way you want it to look. It's really, of any brand that I've ever seen actually in hair, if you use the shampoo for what the shampoo is meant to be, your hair will do what the shampoo says it's meant to do, which is kind of wild. Right. And you have a lot of different varieties within that. But when you started with Garen, it was such a tailored brand and it was very specific. Right. Will you tell us about sort of the genesis of having a brand and maybe where you decided to go with it when you relaunched it as R&Co?
Well, the original Garen New York products were specific because I was always working with more than one model on the set. And I came to realize I was bringing so many different products to make the hair do something. And then I started realizing that if I could create something that was universal for someone's hair type, but filled many gaps, and then I would have something that would make hair straight. I could blow the hair dry with it. I could style it. I could keep it going all day long by using different layers of products and knowing where I start and where I ended. So with R&Co, we started over almost 10 years ago, and we created the core, I call it core, but this is the original R&Co. And this is your television shampoo and conditioner. And that was for television glamorous hair. Almost anyone can use it. Then we have turntable and cassette, which is for curly hair. It's a whole collection for curl hair with curls, because people want to embrace their curls. And the history of my work and my time working with all the greats, all the great photographers, all the great designers, all the great editors, all the great makeup artists. And I remember almost every shoot and everything that went into it. We were kind of like the people behind the scenes. That's why there's such a huge difference in today's world than it was in our world. Because in our world, we were kind of private. We were kind of behind the scenes, watching what was going on, creating what we wanted to create. And then it would arrive on the pages of the magazine, and it wasn't so automatic. And it was precise, and it was a surprise. I remember when I first met Farrah, and your dad and mom were involved, and I did she put me on the map the first time.
This is Farrah Fawcett made Farrah Fawcett.
Yeah, Farrah Fawcett.
The Charlie's Angel.
Yep, the Charlie's
Angel. And you clipped her wings.
Clipped them off. And your dad and I did a real sauvage kind of sexy hair look in a big knit sweater and his ripped jeans for an ad for her shampoo for Fabergé. So that all being said, she was like an icon for the 60s, 70s, 80s. And we had her, and I worked with her, and we were friends for over 20 some years. But we kept it private. There was nothing to post it. The paparazzi would catch it, but that was kind of special, and therefore you go on, and then you have Madonna that we worked with, and we did the sex book. And of course, Madonna, turned another page in my life.
I love that we're going from these major moments to major moments so quickly, because there are so many. I mean,
yeah, there's a lot in between.
There's so many major moments. And I think, when I thought about naming this podcast, I probably should have just called it Legends.
Well, Garen for sure is a legend, because, all those major covers. When did you start doing American Vogue covers?
1975.
So from 1975 till even recently, Garen does the covers. And for many years, he was the only one who did the covers. And the same for Italian Vogue. But Italian Vogue you did,
yes.
For years, he did all the major covers.
And with covers, you had a formula. There always was a formula.
Will you tell us the formula for the cover?
The formula for my end of it had to be close up, like here, big head. So the editor's job was to make sure whatever clothes were being featured, the attention was in the neckline and the earring. The makeup artist had to do the makeup that was like America Beautiful. Okay. My job was to make sure the hair always went to one side to fill the side of the page where all the print was going on.
Because she was
straight in or into one side. So you got a 3/4, but mostly she was surprised and straight into the camera, but shifted over.
She would look, and she always looked towards the binding, not towards the open pages. It's always the binding, and all the writing, all the cover lines were on along the binding. So Garen's job was to fill that space so that they could write on it and put, the type needed to be seen. And then he had to also be able to, on the other side of her face, put some hair so it gave it some interest. So
it was a formula. It was like, if you knew the decades you were working in, it was a formula. And then we moved into where it was fashion with the models and 3/4. And then we went full length, which we all hated because we lost the glory of the girl. But when we had the supermodels, they, for some reason, because they knew their bodies, they knew how to move, they were able to capture an amazing picture because they were full models.
So now we're into the early 90s at that point.
Yeah, because they were runway models and print models. So you have the beginning, which was just personalities and beautiful girls in the 70s when I started working, and celebrities like singers, actors. We were supposed to be able to do every kind of hair. And your makeup artist had to do every kind of makeup. We weren't separated. But there also
weren't that many of you at that time.
There wasn't. No.
There wasn't that many that
could make it happen.
Could work for Vogue. It was always it was a very small circle of people because the Vogue editors were on staff. So that was finite. And the hair and makeup people had to be sort of a certain caliber.
Well, you had to get the shot.
Yeah, right? It's like we didn't.
Teams, I think.
It became teams in the end. You ended up being put with the makeup artist, the hairdresser, but you could rotate around different hairdresser, different makeup artist.
So,
like in the beginning, I worked with Way Bandy, Ariella, and Sandy Linter, but I was mostly with Way Bandy, Ariella, and maybe Joey Mills.
That's the hair and makeup team. And then the stylist was obviously related to the magazine.
Yeah, with the magazine, your mother was actually one of the first freelance stylists.
Yes.
In the late 70s, 80s, because she had been in the 60s and 70s a Vogue editor. And then, so they knew she knew what the Vogue mission was. And I think that
she would be able to step in and do a cover
right
as a guest, not by being owned by Vogue because she already had her company.
Yeah. And it was the first time that had happened. It usually had to be on staff.
So when I look at Garen's covers with you, I see some Vogue with Gwyneth and Oprah and Cameron. I see some Bazaar and Allure, Kim Kardashian. So this spans a real moment in time. Is there, when I look at these, obviously I remember all of the moments that happened around them. Were any of these shoots that you thought, okay, we got to make it happen? Like we're talking about, where you got to really turn it on because you got to make sure you turn it out.
I think Oprah was a big deal when we did the Oprah cover. Oprah would call me to, see how the clothes were going because we had all the clothes made for her. And it was all designers, had submitted sketches to Anna. Then Anna submitted the ones she liked to Oprah. The clothes were made. And
all of the clothes were custom.
All the clothes were custom.
Wow.
And then Oprah called me one day and said, I want to use my hairdresser. And I said, well, this is Vogue. And I think if you're going to do Vogue, you need the Vogue Experience. So you should have the person who does Vogue covers, which is Garren. And I said, if you're going to do the Experience, you have to go all in. You can't leave your leg on the side of the pool and dive in. You're going to break your leg. You got to go all in. So she was like, okay. So Garren ended up doing the hair. But the unusual thing was that she asked if she could bring her hairdresser, who Garren, in the end, you actually knew Sam, right?
We both worked together at Glenby. And he's the one that basically ended up assisting me that day, handing me the rollers and told Oprah to just chill. Don't worry. Your hands are, you're in good hands. And we just played for 3 days or 2 days.
Yeah, and it was great. And she just let us do whatever we wanted to her.
Sometimes isn't that the role of the hairdresser too, to just get you to chill on the shoot, to just kind of have a moment, sit in the chair, relax again, recenter?
That's how it used to be. I had the freedom and creativity from the editor, which was your father, and the photographer, to be able to change the haircuts or get their haircut, change their looks. And most of the time, the deals were made that if you were going to get on a cover and you were an actress or a singer, that Garen had to do something different with your hair.
What happened is they would get vogued. That's really what the thing was. You would look like the magazine that you were working for, because each magazine had its own look. So American Vogue was very specific. It was very chic, very American. Italian Vogue was a little racier, so you could really push it. So if we did a celebrity for Italian Vogue, we would push it. The difference is then we were not micromanaged. You went, actually when we did Italian Vogue, we never saw the clothes till the day of the shoot. The clothes would appear in giant duffel bags. We'd be opening it and going, oh my God, they told us it was going to be cocktail dresses and it's men's suits. And then suddenly we had to, on the spot, change the vibe. And I think that was why so many people at that time period were great hairdressers, makeup artists, stylists, because they had to shift at that moment, just like change. What is it going to be? And we all worked together. And I think it's different now.
I think also at the time that we're talking about, celebrities were not as done. So they didn't have that opportunity until they it almost was like being on the Vogue cover put them in focus.
Yeah.
And then that became the way that people would do their hair. Right. And it became the way that people would see that person. So if Garen would straighten their hair, suddenly you'd find this actress on the red carpet or on late night TV with this hair that Garen had created. Or sometimes he would give them a fabulous haircut.
Yeah.
And where I think we've come to now is everyone wants to control their image so much. And there was this ease at the time and a trust that this group of creatives was going to see you in the best light possible. And then that light was then going to change your career. So people wanted to allow that.
Well said.
Thank you.
Very well said, Cayli.
Under the Cover is a production of Knockout Beauty Media Group and Audily. I'm writer and host Cayli Cavaco Reck. Guest booking is by Paul Cavaco and Lindsay Hannon. Audio and video production is by David Woje. Photo research is by Kate Hill. Our executive producers are Cayli Cavaco Reck and Paul Cavaco at Knockout Beauty Media Group, and Matthew Wells, Lindsay Hannon, and David Woje at Audily. Special thanks to Meredith Honig, Jessica Alpert, and John Parati at Rococo Punch, and Rachna Shah, Jamie Karp, and Jenna Preventure at KCD. For photos and more details on the series, follow Under the Cover Podcast on Instagram and Substack at Under the Cover. If you like the series, please leave us a review, and as always, don't forget to tell a friend. I'm Cayli Cavaco Reck. Thank you for listening.